With the rising cost of living these days, it's having a serious impact on those who lack affordable housing. Thankfully, we have some dedicated people right here in Lethbridge and different organizations committed to providing help. Joining us to talk about some of the challenges for those who are living on the streets, the working poor, and those with addictions is Ken Kissick. Ken is the co-founder of Streets Alive Mission here in Lethbridge. Ken, welcome back to Bridge City News.
Thanks for having me. I look forward to this.
Me as well. Now, Ken, for those who are not familiar with your ministry, what is Streets Alive really all about?
Ultimately, Streets Alive is about making sure that we're looking after the vulnerable in our community, um, looking after their emotional, physical, spiritual needs. Ultimately, we're trying to connect them with Jesus Christ, and through that, be able to help their lives. But in the meantime, if they're cold, if they're hungry, if they're homeless, they're not willing to necessarily listen to good news. So we demonstrate the good news through our actions.
No, I love that. Ken, our temperatures here in southern Alberta can become very frigid during the cold winter months, as you're well aware. Can you explain how that kind of weather really impacts those who are living on the street?
Well, ultimately, we have an emergency shelter, but for a variety of reasons, there's a population that doesn't want to use those resources, and when they're caught out in the cold, as for example, this morning it was -8 or -9. That's frostbite temperature, and so these people are subject to frostbite. They're subject to hypothermia, all of those things. They're a vulnerable population. Their immune system's weak, so it can be deadly long before we think of those temperatures in -30 and -40.
So with inflation going through the roof and everything being a lot more expensive these days, are you seeing more people on the streets or is it about the same?
Our homeless street addiction population continues to grow. Uh, it's just part of what we're doing. The inflationary thing, you're going to start seeing here in Lethbridge what Calgary has been fighting with for a little while, and that's people living in motorhomes, trailers. They just can't afford housing anymore, and so they're reduced to finding accommodation, and you'll have families living in a motorhome.
You know what?
Uh,
It's a story we recently had on Bridge City News. You're right. People who had to sell their homes, they couldn't afford their homes anymore, and are living in an older RV.
yep, and that's coming. We're not keeping up with affordable housing. And unfortunately, it continues to have long-term effects. And once people start to lose hope, then they start to drift into the things that will take away that pain. And now you're into drugs and those kinds of addiction. And today's drugs will kill you pretty quick.
So from a lot of the people who you've interviewed, you've helped over the years, those who are battling drug addictions, is it a form of escapism for a lot of them? Or maybe hurting, like they're hurting and maybe covering a lot of that pain?
Absolutely. No one gets up in the morning and decides they're going to become an addict. Uh, Addiction comes out of some form of trauma, and then that leads them into addiction. And I mean, we've got people that were involved in an auto accident, and then you're taking oxycodone or something for that pain, and then that just drifts into an addiction. You'll have others where you have abusive relationships, sexual abuse. You have long-term trauma, and ultimately, the pain of the trauma, they just want to kill it. Today's drugs, unfortunately, are the fentanyl and the meth. Just they actually just take away all hope. Their whole sense of self-preservation is gone. We experience people outside our center with their fingers turning black who refuse to come in where it's warm because we won't let them bring their drugs. So they stay with their drugs outside. And then the next thing you know, they're in the emergency hospital having to deal with frostbite.
So do a lot of your volunteers use naloxone kits? Do you teach them how to use that to help somebody who may OD?
Yes, largely it's our staff, but anybody that's involved in our outreach receive training on naloxone. Um, Lately, we haven't had to do as much of that, but it's cycles. But yes, they're trained in that. They're trained in what we need to do to be able to help the people. We have staff that does intensive case management. Uh, we're working to help people through a navigation center to get off the street and out. Uh, Hence, our the other side to us is our recovery programming.
Ken, I remember when I was there a few years ago and Julie took me on a bit of a tour, your wife, your beautiful bride there, and she showed me this beautiful mural of so many of the people who you've helped over the years, many who suffer from addictions, who are homeless, and many on that wall, she said, are now gone. And that just really tugged at my heartstrings, and it brought a tear to my eye when I saw that. And because a lot of these people who you're helping, they become friends and family.
They do. We're very connected to them. This Lethbridge in southern Alberta in 2023 lost 153 people to overdose.
Wow.
That's significant, and it's going up because the drugs are deadly. And there's a new one. It's been out there for a while now. It's mixed. It's called xylazine. It's a horse tranquilizer, large animal tranquilizer. They're mixing that within it, and what that does is when people get injured, they get a cut. It doesn't heal properly, so we're dealing with massive infections. And we just heard that a couple of days ago that one of our street people that had a infection in her leg and wouldn't deal with it passed away.
Oh, no. So, Ken, how can viewers really help your ministry? What kind of donations, and maybe do you need more help with volunteers at Streets Alive?
We're always looking for volunteers. Because we have a variety of areas. We have our repurpose center, which is collecting and helping with clothing and furniture for the immigrants and everybody else. We have our pin bank downstairs. If those that have a heart for outreach, we will train them, but it's not for the faint of heart. It's a real life changing ministry, and you got to be up for it.
I can see it also being very rewarding at the same time when you see the difference you're making in many people's lives and maybe how some of those lives are changed.
Our current outreach leader, I won't say her name, but she actually came. We got her off the street. She came through our program, and she has been clean for oh, year and a half. Uh, uh, Talented lady, very dedicated to reaching the hearts of the people, and that's just one of a lot of stories. Our addictions recovery program has we have about a 80% success rate of getting people past 120 days. We graduated over 90 people last year out of that program.
Wow.
We are seeing families reunited, fathers getting visitation rights with their children, getting back into productive society. So there is hope for these, and the biggest thing that we are trying to bring to the people is hope, because they have none, and they need healing, and there is only one healer. So that is our entire purpose: is to introduce people to the gospel of Christ, and then walk with them as He ministers to them, bringing them out of that darkness. We serve a God that brings people out of darkness into His marvelous light, and we're just one of the vehicles that He uses for that.
Amen. Now, Ken, you have your annual Coldest Night of the Year walk, which is coming up on February the 22nd. Can you explain what this is all about and how our viewers can maybe get involved?
So they just need to. Right now, it's open. The portal's open. They just need to type in "Coldest Night of the Year" or CNOY Lethbridge. They need to then find Streets Alive, because there's two of us here, and then they just follow the links. They can either register. We would love people to put in teams, but everything is done online. How you raise your money, how you get people to donate, it's all there. It's very simple, and basically what it is, it's a 5K walk that will start at 5 o'clock on Saturday, the 22nd of February. You'll see the route in the website. We have hot chocolate and something after, but it's a family event. So we're encouraged, bring your families, walk in the cold. Now, we've had days where it's +5, and we've had days where it's -25. But really, it's designed to just give you an experience of what it means to be out in the cold for a while. It takes about 45 minutes to walk 5K. And so on those chilly days, you'll feel what a street person feels like, except they don't have a warm place to get into.
Now let's talk about another initiative that you have at Streets Alive. It's called Stuff a Bag for Streets Alive. An opportunity, big opportunity, as we approach the Christmas holiday season.
Yeah. So what that is, you come on in here, get a blue bag. It's blue in color. It's called Stuff a Bag, and you stuff it. You stuff it with food, or you stuff it with clothing, socks, new underwear, whatever you want to stuff it with. And if you want to, you want to do it as a family, you take one or two of those to Walmart, and away you go, and you just stuff them. And we've seen them come in like you can barely carry them, but it's great. And we've had, if you're part of a small group, sometimes you come down, get 5 or 6 of them. Maybe you're leading a youth group, whatever. It's anybody can be in it. We love them. They're great, and it's a great promotion this time of year.
And very rewarding, absolutely. Ken, you have some interesting programs at Streets Alive as well. Can you share a bit about Exodus Men's Life Recovery Program, and for the ladies, the Genesis Women's Life Recovery Program?
Correct. So this is what we call Recovery Road, and it includes the men's and women's recovery program. So this is a program by which people, once they've done detox, they've kind of started the process of getting down the road. They join the program. It includes safe, secure housing. So that's part of their program. Uh, and you do a 30-day initial, and then you do 90 days of programming. Uh, and and then we encourage another 90, but really the 120 days, if we can get people kind of on the road in 120 days. And a lot of the people who come to the program, some of them are people who do know Christ and some don't, but almost everybody has engaged in a relationship with Jesus Christ at the end of that 120 days, which really is the key to their success.
Earlier, we chatted a bit about affordable housing and the lack thereof. Are you seeing more people on the streets who are maybe coming from the Middle East, from Ukraine, from other countries? Or is it kind of 50-50 between locals and those from other nations around the world?
The the immigrants are well looked after. We don't see too many of those out there unless they've got caught up in addiction. Okay, and then they're out. What we are seeing though is that downward push um, because of affordability. People can't afford a house, so you have a better class of renter. So then the landlords raise rents, and that just pushes down. So we're now starting to see the work. We've already seen them, but more working poor, more families that struggle are getting pushed out, and in some cases, you now have 2 or 3 families living in a single place. They're packed together. That's not healthy. And then some of them, like you say, they're you start to see the tents and the campers, and they're just making a way. And unfortunately, we are still struggling with red tape and the ability to build affordable housing quickly in our community, or repurpose housing quickly. We need to deal with that.
Ken, how much help are you receiving municipally and from the province at the same time?
Uh, Little, not much. We have some grant applications and things out. I mean, we certainly have great support from our local MLA and municipal council, but they're restricted in just to how much they can do. And obviously, when things like uh, the exhibition building and that thing comes up, it chunks into funds that they may have for other uses. Uh, but our ours has always been our trust and faith in God and the people of God to respond to Him, and we're seeing great things. A lot of people are nervous about the postal strike. That that it affects us. We get a lot of donations through the mail, but people are finding a different way to get to us, and they're getting it to us, and we're very grateful and blessed. Because ultimately we serve a God who always looks after us.
So, Ken, I want to circle back to how you're really planting seeds for Christ here with your ministry. To what degree does faith in Jesus really impact individuals in their recovery journey?
Oh, it's the absolute key. Um, let's face it, all of our lives without Christ, would be wasted because we would be in charge of ourselves, which was never good. Um, the faith in Christ and their ability to allow Him in brings healing. It brings strength. It brings hope. Uh, because that's who He is. So that while we do all of this other stuff, it has a single purpose. If we are not introducing people to Christ, then we are wasting our donors' money and we're wasting our time. So we really try to focus, but that introduction is really comes through action. It comes through us living our lives before people and them seeing Jesus working in us and us being able to say, well, He'll work in you too. It is when you see that light come on in there, when they receive Christ and the light comes on, it is something that you can't describe in people's lives.
Ken Kissick is the co-founder of Streets Alive Mission here in Lethbridge. Ken, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.